and inviting you to join me on this conversation looking into women's psychology, because in order to coexist as and live sustainably, we have to know each other well enough to like each other. So there's a channel, it's called Casey Zander on YouTube, and he talks a lot about how people interact unsuccessfully, and he has a more dating quote unquote angle, and how to, women, obviously people that are quote unquote only dating are going to be less oriented around commitment and truly knowing themselves and respecting who they are and who other people are, because their goals are more short term. They're more about physical intimacy, which is to say, it's like you either want sex or you want marriage, is my theory. And I think that fundamentally eliminating premarital intimacy is what we need in order to continue a sustainable existence as human beings. Because when you don't operate from that vantage point, you end up competing against each other as a society, and men trying to seek multiple partners, women trying to seek whatever guy they can attract that they find the most attractive, and it being the theme not being about love, and it being more about who can attract more people, who's the richest, who's the most popular, who likes who's in what relationship, and it turns into this drama that is not useful for humanity. And when I say not useful, I mean not sustainable to raise children in. Any relationship of, that's an intimate one, that's not designed to raise children in. Like, for example, if two people have the same values, then they're going to want to raise children in that environment. They're going to want to foster their shared values in their child. But that's supposed to be a given. And so what has happened in the past 100 years is we've gone from from needing to have a cohesive family unit because work conditions were harsh and there was mainly only work available for men, to things getting easier, and so there's more work available for women, and so therefore because women have more financial freedom, they have more freedom to choose and to do what they want. And I think part of what women have done is tried to turn the tables on men always being the ones objectifying women, like talking about their breasts, and you hear women talking about men's PPS, and the reality is, if people chose the right person, then they would only be with one person. There would only be one person. So no matter how they were able to, if they were able to have, better connection and sexual intimacy and everything than others. Everyone only gets one person, so it doesn't really, it's not a cause for controversy if one person has a healthier and more attractive body than another, or is richer, because they're using their value, they're using what they have in a good way to, for example, make attractive children and raise a stable family, and or if they're wealthier, then that means they're more responsible and able to sustain people, sustain society. Like the societies are unstable if nobody's saving money. And so let's look at some things that women spend money on, and of course men spend money irrationally as well, but this discussion's about really looking into what women do and why they do it, and like stuff like why women find married men more attractive. Women are more attracted to men who are considered attractive by another woman or other women. And so it's a weird thing where it's like that means that if a woman it gets cheated on, then sometimes she might find that attractive, that the man is able to attract another woman. And that's why it's important to have real black and white, like marriage or no marriage, and no gray areas, because when you do, you have control over your individual life and life as society. And so, like, women spend money to beautify themselves, right? Quote unquote. But the question is, why do they spend that money, and is it worth doing, or is it even healthy doing? I'm here to question. And I would say let's start off with makeup. Like, makeup is not healthy to put on because it inevitably gets embedded into the skin, absorbed, and yet women will always use it. And even stuff like hair, when you have your hair, right, it's that there's a cost associated with that, and nails and wearing high heels is damaging to the lower back. And also, even the idea of wanting like a larger breast size, like that's harmful to the lower back, and it kind of directs the attention away from the VVS. And see, for me, what seems logical to me is to want a woman who it's to want somebody who's being as healthy and natural as possible. And so what that means is and by the way, I should preface all of this by saying that, like, how do we transcend the reality that women do have relatively larger vaginal spaces, the internal component, and so that's why they need like a larger object for full stimulation. Like, after doing some research recently, it looks like what even some quote unquote sex therapists are not willing to admit, that women have like they have these areas around the cervix, which is like at the back of the vagina, that are called the A spot and the P spot, and they're typically an object of at least 6 inches, depending on the sexual position, if not more, is required in order to even access that. But you can easily say that, you know, a woman with that larger, you know, internal vaginal cavity is, you know, less attractive because there's it's might be looser or not feel as feel too deep, or whatever it is. And also I've also done research to indicate that there are some methods for if men do want to enlarge their size. There are some methods out there to increase maybe 1 or 2 inches. And so that's also an option. But the reality is, just to keep turgid, to keep erect, it's not as easy, because it requires, what are you doing? You're using the heart to create a blood flow. And so it's not that easy to create the larger. And then so simply speaking, I want people to be conscious of these things, and not because it's our human task to understand ourselves. Especially women should know their bodies, and they should be using sex toys and everything. This shouldn't be a mystery. It shouldn't be like an unknown thing. Let me just execute this move here. There we go. And like I said initially, the most important thing is that as individuals, you can only have one spouse by and large. So it doesn't, you know, it's not as much of a factor that, you know, one person may be more sexually compatible than another person, although it is stuff that's worth discussing. But like, I think what transcends these other items is just a celebration of women. So this stream was titled Women Explained. So it's like figuring out, okay, what are women about? What truly makes sense for them? And half of what I'm gonna say is already stuff that's, you know, it's kind of established in culture. It's like people know what it is. It's like, well, for men to be masculine and women to be feminine, and so that they can support each other, and that they can play out those roles and have that dynamicism and that magnetic energy that comes along with like connecting with people. And this guy's, you know, this sort of energy of people wanting to be equal, and that for me is in the celebration of the woman's flower, the VVS, and the clitoris. And to me, that's like a fun way for people to not be so stressed out about, you know, this whole phenomenon of the visual effect and the whole phenomenon of the imperfections of potential sexual compatibility, and I just go beyond all that stuff and into the realm of like healthy skin, and like women and men should be thinking that they should be thinking of things in terms of women, like what of who would they want to give oral sex to. So when you start thinking of things in those terms, it becomes easier to fine tune. Like you can look at a woman, maybe looking at her skin health, maybe looking at her skin tone, like what color skin do you find attractive, because it's a more subtle experience, the whole like, and obviously hygiene. And like for me, for example, I prefer women who are vegan, because even if their pussy has the same essence and scent, it just the idea of them eating the dead animals and everything, it's a turnoff for me. So this different kind of orientation, I think, is a useful start for men who want to choose the right person. And the thing about women is they will do crazy things. They'll do things like they'll be emotional, and their hormones, they'll be affected by their hormones during their period, and that's totally understandable that they would do that. But the thing is, it's best. The thing is what they'll do is they'll make money on their own, and then they'll want their husband to make up the same cost of living, that for both of them. Like, so if they're making $50K a year, then they'll want their husband to make like $100K a year to support them both in the same lifestyle. And the thing about lifestyle is, all that really matters in lifestyle is that you have really good health. Like, that's the main thing about lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's like nothing else really matters more than being happy and healthy, and you don't need that much in order to achieve that. And a lot of it's free. Like, sex is free, you know what I mean? So you can have fun intimacy for free, but you have to talk about the frequency that you want to do it, because some people may not want to do it more or less than others. So these are, it's all like, it's this whole thing about needing to make sure that you have accurate knowledge of yourself and of what potential person that you want to attract in the future. And so moving forward, so it's like, how do we kind of encapsulate the idea that some people, what the possibilities are? I would say that we really try to figure out what women are about, what motivates them, and also being careful about. See, the thing is I think women have like this group think where you've really, if you're interested in what I'm saying, you should really look at my I'm a fan of this guy's channel. It's called Casey Zander, because he will break things down more heavily. He'll like really fine tune, and then if you combine him plus my spin on marriage and being in a loving marriage, then you're doing well. Then you're, I would say, together. And the question is, though, is it's like when you really find out about women and you're also engaged in self-intimacy, which of course allows for you to no longer want a woman just for sex. And when that happens, then you're free. You no longer want you no longer need somebody to have that intimacy with, so you're like, now you can choose, like, you can choose whatever you want. You can choose any woman that you can be more selective about women, because you're not thinking of them only in terms of the sexual experience, but you're thinking of them in terms of, like, who are you as a human being? Like, given any choices to do whatever you want, the sex is like an appetite. When you are sexual, it makes, I mean, when you don't manage your desires, it's like a hunger that you're either conscious or unconscious of, and it's going to make you want you get the idea. So yeah, I'm gonna call this stream short, but I got some ideas out there. Some of this may just sound like I'm doing like reference material and notes, because that's sometimes what I have to do in order to push through. Like, this is a whole process of discovery. But let's end on, for the few viewers, since there are people online here with me, why don't we do some light work visualization? So take a stone in your hands, or a coin, whatever it is, and a natural product, and just rub it as if you're tapping into the source field of energy, of like everything is there. It's like you're holding onto it, and you're tapped into the unified field of light, just like Neo saw in the Matrix. And then we take our fingers like this, because it's like a wand, and then we start beaming around. We beam our immediate surroundings. Obviously, don't do this if you're in a potentially unsafe place. You want to be, if you have to focus at all, don't do this. You can wait until later, and then you can do this action. uh, this light work, you just refer to the ended stream. But just imagine that, you're beaming out. Imagine you're blasting brilliant white light in your immediate surroundings, and create this like 20-foot semicircle all around you, semi-sphere, a force field. And imagine it's completely surrounding you, and people are like staring, they're astonished, but it's protecting you. And this is more useful for when it's kind of like leading up to protecting you, to avoid potential conflicts, create synchronicity in your life. And so the more you do this type of stuff, the more you're programming your brain, the more you imagine people that you're upset at, but you imagine smiling and being happy, the more you're gonna attract that. You're gonna have it in your mind. So imagine people smiling. All right, imagine like, let's do 3 people. We're gonna choose first person. Choose somebody you're upset at that's kind of in your mind, and imagine them smiling for a second and just doing their thing, not in the context of your relationship with them, but they're just smiling wherever they are. And imagine you're an angel and you can fly over near them wherever they are, and a stream of light just streams down, brilliantly shines, a bright stream of light. It shines on them, and it shines like through them, and they're excited and joyful. Maybe try this on another person. Maybe somebody who you have to deal with for a work-related issue. Imagine them smiling, and just a brilliant white light. We have some unknowns in our life that are beyond our comprehension, but let's try to make it known. All right, make your intentions known. So, like, imagine that person smiling. Now let's imagine something in your personal life, who maybe someone you're interested in romantically, or maybe someone who you had a problem with in your personal life. But whatever it is, maybe there's some energy there. Let's clear that energy by imagining that person smiling, and then imagine you're like an orb of light, and you go through wherever they are, and then they see it, and they kind of tap into the light, and it activates their aura. And then, like, imagine other people, imagine them like beaming brightly and smiling and excited, because the light is a healing process. And just imagine that person, like, no pressure, ending any pressures and everything. And what we can also do is we can try as a bonus, we can try one other person. Let's say it's also good to do the light work on people who are, shall we say, they're like in power. They're in positions of power, and so that they don't abuse that or don't get targeted by evil interdimensional forces, or however you want to describe it, dark spirits, greed even, of their own greed. Just imagine brilliant white light on someone who's, say, a leader in your country, or, and remember, they're only a leader of a party. They're kind of like the CEO of the affairs of the country if they're the president. Don't think of them, they're not like your president, they're not like the country's president. The country is an entity. It's like a formality of theater of, well, these are these people, and they do talk for us, and maybe they don't talk for us, but it's the best form of leadership that we've been able to go with so far, and it's maybe a semi-democracy, but at least it's better than the alternatives of full-on dictatorships and what have you. So let's imagine that person you have in mind. Imagine them smiling, and imagine, you can even imagine people doing the beaming, like holding out their hand like this and blasting around them. Imagine them beaming the other people around them, and just good vibes. The light streams in, and people see that, and yeah, that's a little sample of light work. But pleasure to have made it through this. A little choppy, but it's ideas being formulated and digested, and then presented forth. And the bottom line is, as far as I can see, if it's a one phrase solution, it's avoid premarital intimacy for world peace, because this is what religions have hinted at, and religions have diluted in their devotion and their commitment, and they've become from orthodox to like semi, whatever you want to call it, progressive or modern or contemporary. But it's like, what's the point of all the other rituals of religions if you don't have the core element of respecting people? And the way you respect people is not treat them like a drug to have sex with, because that just shows that you care. If you have sex before marriage, it just shows that you care more about sex than marriage. And on a final note, that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of women make, is they think that if a man wants to have sex with them, that he might want to marry them, or if a man, if she can have sex with him and he is attached to her, by that he'll stay attached. But that's not a healthy relationship either. Marriage needs to be based upon values. And by the way, all these relationship phrases and this girlfriend, boyfriend, it's all half-hearted. We're in a relationship, we're dating, we're seeing each other, we're hanging out, we're they call it secret lovers, but there's nothing loving about that. It's all about lust. But let's transcend all of that. And yeah, you guys take care, and we will see you next time. Aloha. Thanks for tuning in.